Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni muli wanji, namaste, jambo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jadley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so delighted and so very honored and thankful that you're joining us in our mission to help families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is Libby Jackson. She is here to celebrate space explorers. Hey, Libby, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be here.
I'm really excited. I have a feeling this is going to be an out-of-this-world episode of the show.
Oh, I hope so. The book is full of out-of-this-world stories, but the exciting thing for me, it was so important to me, is that all the stories in the book are completely true. So everything I hope we're going to talk about might be very exciting, but it's all completely true.
Completely true. Oh, so no stories of little green men in UFOs, huh?
No. This all really happened. They might seem unbelievable. And when I was writing the book, it was really important to me that I kept it completely true and real, because I think in this world, you read stories about space, you watch the movies, kids can think, whoa, what's real, what's not, and is it all fantastic and so on. And it was just really, really important to me that what I write in the book about these things actually really happened. Yeah. You know, no matter, right at the beginning, I say, no matter how unbelievable it might at first seem.
Well, why don't we get into it? I'm really intrigued because the space program has been something that's been really exciting to me since I was a kid. I remember where I was when Neil Armstrong first touched down on the moon. I was coming back from seeing a Godzilla movie at our at our neighborhood theater, and getting into the car and just hearing the radio play-by-play, if you would, of that landing. And then later on when he jumped off the ladder and said those words, it's just driven so many hopes inside of me. So I'm really happy that you're here. What's one of the most fantastical stories that you write about in Space Explorers?
Oh, well, there are so many. All of them are. And for that very reason, I'll get there in a minute, but you say it, you will remember that moment and it excited you. These are all the stories that I have remembered that have excited me when I was little and when I was growing up, and I've been working in the industry now for years. And they are the stories that I think young people should know, will be excited to know, so that they're all really exciting. But one of my favorite bits, just to go back to that, Neil Armstrong moment that you remember so well, is the end of that story, because they nearly didn't make it home. And I had forgotten that. I don't remember that bit. And they only got off the moon thanks to a felt tip pen. I guess what you would call a Sharpie or a marker. Uh-huh. And they had done their spacewalk. They'd said the famous words. They'd got all the moon rocks. They had got back into their tiny little lunar module that was, the size of a couple of phone boxes stuck together or something like that, if we even have phone boxes these days, in this day and age. But, it was a really cramped space, and the astronauts had to put on these big, bulky spacesuits to get out to the moon to do their spacewalk. So it was really, really cramped. And somewhere in all the kerfuffle, they had snapped a switch, a lever off one of the switches that they needed. And it was the switch that was going to allow them to fire the engine to launch off the moon. And without being able to flick this switch, the engine wouldn't fire, they would get stuck. And yeah, they looked around and they went, yeah, it looks about that right. We'll shove a felt tip pen in there, and it flicked the switch inside, and it was fine. And if I remember rightly, they didn't even bother to tell Mission Control about this at the time, because there was nothing they could do. And so it's the little details like that in amongst the brilliant stories. There's other ones I love. Later, as you get. So this book, I should say, it starts right at the beginning of humans going into space, with the first first cosmonaut to go into space, Yuri Gagarin. It takes you through those early days of when we were figuring out how people could live and work in space, through to the start of the space shuttle, when we started seeing women fly into space regularly at last. The Mir space station, which was Russia's fantastic space station in the 1980s and 1990s. Got the space station today, what's happening on that? And then it does peek into the future a little bit. But another story of mine that I love happened on Mir, which was the Russian space station. And there was a big crash. A cargo ship that was taking rubbish away from the space station ended up crashing into it and causing all untold damage. And it was tumbling and it was rolling over and over. And the crew on board had to save it. It was doomed. It was falling apart. And one of the parts where they got it back to working again was when Michael Foale, the NASA astronaut, who actually also was British, he looked out at the stars going past, and they had no idea where they were in space, and he held out his thumb, and knowing the sky and looking at the stars and knowing which was which and working out how quickly they were tumbling and which way they were pointing, by using his thumb to see how long it took for stars to travel across the sky. He could tell Mission Control, they fired the engines, they slowed it down, they got it pointing the right way. And it's little details like that, in all of these stories that I think are just beautiful. And I hope the kids reading it get excited by them too.
Yeah, that's one of those things. I've actually had the opportunity to speak to a couple of astronauts. And, I don't think we understand how alone those explorers are when they're out there. It's not like, you can just walk down to the corner supermarket or Walmart or hardware store to get a piece. You're up there, and you are there with what you have. And even though you're talking to Mission Control, in some situations, it can take minutes for a message to go from space to Mission Control and then back again. So you really have to rely on yourself. It must take incredible courage to go and allow yourself to be blasted into space.
I think so. And I do know, I've worked with astronauts for years, I do know that they all know what they're doing and they understand the risks. And that's covered in the book as well a little bit. What does it take to be an astronaut? People ask me that all the time. How can I be one? What do I need to do? And they do understand that it is dangerous, and it is dangerous. You're going into a place where there's no air, where it's 200 degrees centigrade in the sun, it's minus 200 degrees centigrade in the shadow, and forgive me, my Fahrenheit conversions are terrible, so I'm not going to try and do that for you now. But they know that. They know they're relying on everybody, but they know it can go wrong, and it really does. But when people say, what do I need? How can I train to be an astronaut? What do I need to do? They come from so many different backgrounds, and they have a technical degree usually, but they have skills that you just pick up through life. And so always the best advice is to do something well, because the astronauts are always doing well in their job that they have before they have an astronaut. And the best way to do well at something is to do something you enjoy. So that's what I like to tell people. Go and find something you enjoy and do it well. And you might get to be an astronaut too one day if that's what you want. And I say there's a little bit in the book about that as well.
Now, one of the things that I've talked to young people about, who hope to be, I want to be a basketball player. I want to be a dancer. I want to be a singer. All these really high-profile jobs. And one of the things that I share with them is, there's only a few people who make it to that level, but they have so many people supporting them. There are so many different ways to be in the basketball business, to be in the music business, to be in the theater business without being that person in the spotlight. Is the same true in space?
Absolutely. That was what I was going to come on to next. We see these astronauts at the pyramid, at the top of the pyramid. There are thousands and thousands of people who get them there. Some of them are scientists, some of them are engineers, but we need people of every single different walk of life to come and get involved in this. There are doctors who are keeping the astronauts fit and healthy. There are lawyers who are working out what you can do and where you can do it. We have people who build the things and design the things, the spacecraft, the spacesuits. There are people making parachutes and sewing them. We've got computer coders. We have people who make podcasts and do all the communications activities around these things. There are people writing the social media posts. There's the office managers who keep all the amazing centers running. But so if space is something that excites you wherever you are in the world, there's a way into it. It's a truly international endeavor. Now, in the States, you have NASA. The people, when people think of space, they think of NASA. And I know there are tens of thousands of roles across the States in all sorts of different things. But if anyone's listening from anywhere around the world, that's true absolutely anywhere. I've worked with people from all around the world. And I think it is true in any single industry, that you can always combine your interest and your skills to find a job that you can do. I was talking to one of my nieces recently, and I asked her, oh, what is it that you want to do? And she said, well, I'm not sure yet. It's two things. And I can't even remember what they were. I think one of them was something like a train driver or something like that. And the other, she said, you're never going to guess what it is, but I think it was a horse trainer or something like that. And she couldn't imagine that somebody would do that job. And I said, well, of course you could do that job. Any job you can think of, people are doing it. So I love sharing that message too.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned was that space these days is an international endeavor. And, one of the things I remember from the, from that race to the moon is that it was a competition. It was a competition between the United States and the Soviet Union and who was going to get there. And that rivalry really drove both countries. And I don't know if we would have gotten to the moon when we did without that rivalry. But I'm hoping that we're at a point right now where we can just kind of say, all right, we've done it. We had the race and both countries did fantastic and wonderful things happen. Can we all just get along right now and start working together? Because if anything, space proves to us that our little countries, our little cities really don't mean that much. We need to come together because even as a world, we're just a speck in this huge universe.
Yeah, you see that whenever the astronauts, the cosmonauts, anyone goes into space, they look down on Earth. They always say you can't see the borders. And they always say that you realize how delicate the Earth is, how special it is. This beautiful marble, blue, green, white, floating in this blackness of space with the teeniest, thinnest bit of atmosphere, which is what keeps us all alive and protects us. So we really do have to work together to come together to protect the Earth and to get into space. That's what the International Space Station has been all about these last 20 years. And it still amazes me that for the last nearly 21 years now, we have had people living and working in space from the US, from Russia now, from Europe, from Canada, from all around the world. And the people who will read this book, the children of it, they have never known anything else. There's always been somebody in space. And then I go back and I think, well, that's nearly true for my life. Now, I'm a child of the space shuttle era. I was born around the same time that the first space shuttle blasted off. And between the Mir space station that I mentioned and then the International Space Station, they didn't quite overlap. But they were pretty close. And so there's been people in space most of my life. And that's when you sort of start realizing how hard it is, because we rushed to the moon within 10 years of getting people into space. We've had the first person in space in 1961, landed on the moon in 69. When I was born, that seemed like a lifetime ago, but I was only 9 years between the last moon landing and me being born. So time is funny when you're a kid, of course. And now, but and now we're thinking, well, what comes next? And the very last story in the book isn't true yet. It's peeking into the future, but it peeks into the future of people going to Mars. And, that goal of sending humans to Mars has been sitting on the horizon of exploration for years. We landed on the moon in 1969, as I said. Everyone was talking about, by the 1980s, we're going to be on the moon. And then in 1980, by the year 2000, we're going to be on the moon. And here we are in 2020 going, it's going to happen in the next 20 years. And it is coming closer. I think we're going to see it. And I really, really mean it when I think that the children who read this book will be the generation that gets to Mars in all those different jobs. Some of them will be the people who go, but there'll only be a handful of those, but it will be a global effort with people in different jobs all around the world. And, and it's the kids of today who are going to be doing that. And I think that's fantastically exciting.
Yeah.
And I hope I get to see it in my lifetime, hopefully.
Absolutely. Now, there may be somebody out there listening who's saying, yeah, great, we're going to Mars, but there's people down here on Earth that are hungry, and there are places where people don't have water, and there's so many, go to a city like Los Angeles, or California, or even Boston, and there are people living on the streets. And why are we spending all these trillions of dollars and all of these resources to go to Mars for what? For somebody's ego?
That's a very, very fair question, and it's a good question to ask, and we have to know the answers to that. Now, here in Europe, we don't spend as much as the US spend, but even here in Europe, the cost of everything we do in getting humans into space, but not just that, lots more, lots of science that we do back on Earth, sending the rovers to go and explore Mars. The cost of that to everybody in Europe is £1 or $1 per person per year. That's it. Now, in the US, I think it's more like $10 a year. I think we spend about 10 times as much. And that's a lot of money. But also, it's not a lot of money in the scheme of what, we spend everything on: defense budgets, hospital budgets, all of these things are much, much more. And what we get out of it is so important, because it is that excitement and inspiration and wonder. And we as humans have always explored. And I smile sitting here as a Brit talking to people in America, of course. We sent people out from Europe. People went out from Europe and explored around the world and discovered. Your podcast listeners can't hear me. I'm doing the inverted commas, discovered America. And then, of course, promptly took it over. And I was just reading something today about how the European bugs wiped out all of the Native Americans and so on, 90% of them, something terrible with the bugs. But the point is, we've always explored around the world, and now we explored the moon. We're going to explore out into the solar system. There is this innate drive, and what we get by doing it is perspective and technology and inventions that help everybody back on Earth. When you send anything into space, and particularly when you send humans into space, you have to figure out how to do it. You have limited mass, limited size, limited power, limited money, actually. So you've got to be clever. You've got to think of things. And we come up with solutions that we never would have thought of if we'd have just got on with everyday life. So you get water recycling that we figured out how to do on the space station. That's helping people all around the world with better recycling systems. We've had, I'm trying to think of other things. We have had, computer coding that pushed forward things. Sorting out the computers to get to the moon really helped computing technology come on in leaps and bounds in ways that helped everybody on Earth. So that there are, lots and lots of different things, and the science that gets done on the space station is helping everybody every day. So it's a fair question, but I usually think it doesn't cost as much as you think it does. Mm-hmm. And we get so much science, technology, and inspiration from it that helps, kids get excited about science, about math, as you would say, maths, as I say, that we need, because we live in a technological society where we need people to code, we need people to build machines, we need people to understand technology. And if space can excite them and help them do that, then that's going to be good for everybody.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I've been a big supporter of the space program. I don't know why we stopped investing in the space shuttle here in the United States. Are you optimistic now that it seems that space travel is moving towards being funded by the private sector, and it's governments aren't sending the latest spaceships up? It's Elon Musk and it's Amazon. And what do you think about that?
It's the way the world has always gone. You look back with aeroplanes. They started out with lots of government support. It was new technology. Started out with the really rich, flying a few planes. And now we see aeroplanes usually flying all around the world. I think the pandemic has slightly changed that a bit, of course. And it is good to see a transition now from governments to private companies. It's going to drive the cost down. It's going to open it up to more people. And it's an exciting, different way of doing things. What the future holds, I don't know. I'm terrible at looking into crystal balls, and so on. And I think there again, you get back to questions about the environment, and rich people buying tickets to go up to space for fun, and what's that going to do to the environmental cost of that, and so on. And there are many, many questions there to be asked. But it does mean that it will be less government money going in, less taxpayers' money going in. And it is this itch that we can't sort of help but scratch as humans to go and explore. Times are changing, and it's sort of the way of the world. And I think we're looking forward to seeing some good partnerships coming up as we keep figuring out how to go back to the moon and one day to Mars. Yeah.
If you were the head of the International Space Program, and you could just wave a magic wand and just say, I think the next thing we should do is this, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. I think we're doing the right things, actually. It is that challenge of sending humans to Mars that just seems to be the thing that we've always dreamed of. Ever since we spotted Mars in the sky, we humans, we wondered, we said we weren't going to talk about little green men and aliens, but we wondered if there were people there, and people looked at the features of it and wondered what was there. We want to go and explore it. But there are really important questions there, because is there life on Mars? Well, if there is, it's quite possible we've already sent it there, from our earthbound microbes that have been on spacecraft that are going. But so we have to be really careful to not just go to Mars and ruin another planet's ecosystem when we've still got a lot of challenges with our own. But that's, a challenge that's being looked at. We'd learn so much from that, not just in science and technology, but about humanity. And answering the question about, is there life out there? Is there life on another planet? It is so fundamental to our understanding of our place in the solar system and the universe. It's a really exciting thing to do. And that's where I think we will keep seeing these missions happen, and we'll keep seeing efforts to go and explore the solar system. And I look forward to it. I think it's, lots of exciting times to happen. And I think as you come back to the kids reading this book, that's what they're going to see. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see what they see in their lifetimes.
Yeah. It's such an exciting time. I know, Libby, everybody's going to want to know where they can go to find out more about you and find out more about Space Explorers.
Yes, so the best place really to find out more about me is to follow me on Twitter. I am at Libby Jackson __, so 2 underscores at the end. I have a website, which is libbyjackson.com. I need to get some more information up on that to make sure that all the links are there. But basically, Space Explorers is available from your local friendly bookseller, online, locally, wherever you go to buy your books, you should be able to get hold of it.
Yeah, and if you walk into your local bookstore and they don't have Space Explorers on the shelf, and that's a good because there are thousands of books that are published every single month, and a little bookstore can't carry them all. But if you just ask nicely, they can pick up the telephone or go online and get it to you in a day or two. It's like magical. It's almost like the space program.
It is, and we need to support our lovely local booksellers. That's what I'm really passionate about, supporting our independents, because they're the people, I think, who they know these things. They get to understand what's going on, and there's nothing nicer, I don't think, than walking into a bookshop and all the promise that's in all of those different books and finding out what they are. That's magical too.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a great time talking about space. Celebrating the new book. It's called Space Explorers, and our guest has been Libby Jackson. Hey, Libby, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Chad Sell. Chad will be returning to the show to celebrate the Cardboard Kingdom Roar of the Beast. That's the next episode of the podcast. Hey, if you're the author of a fantastic children's book, you may be frustrated at how very difficult it is to get your book noticed. It makes perfect sense. There are literally thousands of books published every single... You thought I was going to say year. No. Every single month, there are literally thousands of books published every single month. We can help you. Our Certified Great Read program is a fantastic program that's helped many, many authors. All you need to do is go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, click on the Authors Click Here button, scroll down to Certified Great Reads. If our panel of parents, educators, and kids believe that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a Certified Great Read, and with that status comes a whole lot of promotional help. Check it out today, readingwithyourkids.com, Authors Click Here, scroll on down to Certified Great Reads. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, want to start by thanking our guest, Libby Jackson. Be sure to check out Space Explorers. Also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so very much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you on the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.